Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to peel back the layers on a film that's already sparking quite a bit of conversation. It's called Sinners, directed by the highly acclaimed Ryan Coogler, and it's set for 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting is this blend of genres it's apparently got and how people are reacting. It's kind of complex already.
Yeah, it definitely sounds intriguing just from the outset.
So our mission for this deep dive is basically to pull out the key stuff from its IMDb page. It's pretty detailed. We're going to sift through, the plot, the production details, what critics and audiences are saying, which seems to be a bit different, and crucially, what the director himself was aiming for.
Right.
So by the end, you should have a much clearer picture of why this film is standing out, for good, or maybe not so good reasons for some.
And the source is just the IMDb page. It's amazing how much you can get from that sometimes.
Totally. It's got cast, crew, ratings, those user reviews, box office, even trivia, everything we need to sort of unpack this thing.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Where do we start?
Right. Let's kick things off with the basics of Sinners, the fundamentals. First up, director and writer, it's Ryan Coogler. He's doing both. Huge talent, obviously.
Definitely. Behind some really major projects.
And the cast looks solid, too. Michael B. Jordan is in it as a character named Smoke. Then there's Miles Caton as Sammy Moore and Saul Williams as Jedediah.
Yeah, that's a strong lineup. And the specs, what are we looking at there?
Okay, so IMDb lists it as R-rated, and it's got a pretty hefty runtime, 2 hours and 17 minutes.
Wow, okay, so not a quick watch.
No, definitely a commitment. Release year is 2025, and the U.S. date is pegged as April 18th, 2025.
Got it. And production-wise?
It looks like a bit of an international effort, actually.
Yeah?
U.S., Australia, Canada are listed as countries of origin.
Interesting.
Yeah, and big companies involved: Warner Bros., Domain Entertainment, Coogler's own Proximity Media.
Makes sense.
And they filmed, at least partly, in Donaldsonville, Louisiana, so that gives you a sense of place, that Deep South setting, perhaps.
Absolutely. That location choice often says a lot.
Yeah.
What about the actual story? What's the premise?
IMDb gives this logline: twin brothers return to their hometown trying to leave, troubled lives behind them.
Okay. Standard setup so far.
Right, but then it says, only to discover an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them back.
Ooh, okay. That hints at something darker, maybe supernatural.
Exactly. And that leads perfectly into the next bit, this ambitious genre blend. It's kind of wild.
Oh, yeah. What are they listing?
Get this: period drama, supernatural horror, vampire horror, action drama, and thriller.
Whoa. Okay, that's a mix. Period drama and vampire horror.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how they balance all that. Like, how do you even set expectations for something like that? Does it risk confusing people?
That's a really good question. It's definitely ambitious. And digging into that period drama part, user reviews mention it's set in the Deep South 1930s.
Okay, so that Louisiana filming location makes sense.
Totally. And it's not just a backdrop. They talk about chain gangs, really overt racism, just raw human struggle, and also the importance of music, like soul music.
Wow. So a very heavy, specific setting for the first part, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That seems to be the consensus for, what people are calling the first half of the movie.
Ah, the first half. This sounds like where things start to get interesting, reception-wise.
Yeah, this is where the puzzle really starts. You look at the numbers, and they tell, kind of different stories.
Okay, lay it on me.
So you've got the IMDb user rating 7.8 out of 10. That's from 171,000 votes, so pretty big sample size. And 7.8 is, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's solid, respectable.
But then you look at the Metascore from the critics. It's an 84 based on over 300 reviews. That's stellar. That's really high praise.
84, wow. Okay, so 7.8 from users, 84 from critics. That is a noticeable gap.
Right. So the big question is, why? What's going on there? What does this mean for you, the viewer, trying to figure out if you'll like it?
Maybe the critics appreciated the ambition more, or saw something the general audience didn't connect with as much.
That could be part of it. When you dig into those user reviews, a common theme pops up again and again. People talk about it being a tale of two halves.
Okay, I think I see where this is going.
Yeah. The sentiment is awesome. The first half is great. Strong, captivating. People are rating it like an 8 out of 10.
Right, the period drama stuff, the setup.
Exactly. But then, the second half, people use words like daft, disappointing, nonsensical. And the ratings for that part apparently plummet. Some say down to a 4 out of 10.
Yikes. From an 8 to a 4, that's a huge drop. So what happens in that second half? What's the issue?
Well, judging by the reviews, it seems to boil down to what some are calling the vampire problem.
Ah, okay, so the vampire horror element kicks in and it doesn't land.
Apparently not for a lot of users.
Yeah.
They describe the vampires as like lacking menace, not scary. Some say they feel like a parody or a complete joke.
A parody, so maybe intentionally comedic.
It's hard to say if it was fully intentional, but reviewers use phrases like unscary. They mention comical eyes and over-the-top gore that didn't feel earned.
That sounds tricky. Trying to blend that intense 1930s Deep South drama with like comical vampires.
Exactly. And some people found the actual fight scenes with them boring too.
Ouch. For boring vampire fights is not what you want.
Definitely not. One reviewer even brought up From Dusk Till Dawn as a comparison.
Oh, okay. Another genre blend.
Right. But they said Sinners wasn't half as good, which, yeah, that stings if you're aiming for that kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's a tough comparison. And what about like the emotional connection? Did people care about the characters through all this?
That seems to be another sticking point for some. One reviewer explicitly said it left them completely cold. They didn't care who died or who lived.
Wow. That suggests maybe the genre shift kind of broke the emotional stakes that were built up in the first half?
It really sounds like it, yeah. And that idea of humor.
Huh?
Another reviewer mentioned that the film seemed to try mixing humor with the horror, but they felt it didn't quite work. Like it sacrificed the big threat of the vampires for laughs, but without really committing to being a full-on comedy either. So it ended up in this kind of awkward middle ground.
Yeah, that tonal whiplash can be really jarring if it's not handled just right.
Absolutely. It's a super fine line to walk.
But it's interesting. Despite all these pretty harsh criticisms of the second half and the vampires, were there things users did like? Consistently.
Oh, definitely. And this is maybe why the overall score is still a 7.8, not lower. People raved about the technical aspects.
Like what?
The cinematography. Stunning. People called the visuals beautiful scenes. That came up a lot.
Okay, so it looks great.
Looks amazing, apparently. And the costumes, too. Fitting for the period. Really well done. Added to that whole 1930s atmosphere.
Nice. What else?
The music. This is a huge one. Reviewers called it very special. They loved how Coogler apparently used music to help tell the story.
Oh, interesting. Not just background score, then.
Seems like it was more integral than that.
Wow.
One person even said, even if you are not a fan of the genre, you will enjoy the music, which is high praise.
That is high praise. And the acting. Jordan, Caton, Williams.
Generally solid marks there, too.
Yeah.
Performances were consistently praised. So, technically, aesthetically, a lot of people thought it was really well crafted.
So it's like the craft is there, the look, the sound, the acting, but the story execution, particularly that genre shift in the second half, is where it divides people.
That seems to be the core issue, yeah. And it leads to some interesting theories about that critic versus audience score gap.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, one user review, and we're just reporting this impartially, of course floated an idea.
Okay.
They suggested that maybe the film has a really bold anti-Klan message right at the very end, like the last 5-7 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And their theory was that maybe this strong message influenced the critics to rate it higher, appreciating the statement it was making.
I see. Like rewarding the film for its social commentary?
Potentially. But for this particular reviewer, and maybe others who felt similarly, that message, while maybe powerful, felt like too little too late to make up for the issues they had with the second half overall.
That's a fascinating thought. It raises questions about what different groups prioritize in a film, doesn't it? Artistic intent and messaging versus, say, genre consistency and pure entertainment value.
Exactly. It hints at that potential disconnect that we talked about.
So speaking of intent, what was Ryan Coogler trying to do here? Did he talk about his vision?
He did, actually. IMDb has a quote where he talks about sequels, saying he never thinks about a potential sequel. He really wanted to work on something original, especially after being involved in big franchise projects.
Okay, that makes sense. A desire to do something standalone.
Right. And he described his intention for Sinners quite vividly. He said he wanted it to feel like a full meal, your appetizers, starters, entrees, and desserts.
A full meal.
Okay. Yeah, he called it a holistic and finished thing.
So connecting that back, his full meal idea probably explains trying to pack in all those different genres, right? The period drama appetizer, the action main course, the horror dessert, maybe.
That seems like a very logical connection, yeah.
Yeah.
He wanted to offer a complete, varied experience in one original package.
But the audience reaction, that tale of two halves, suggests that maybe not all the courses landed for everyone. Delivering that full meal successfully proved really challenging.
It certainly seems that way. The ambition was clearly there, the desire to be original and complete, but the execution, at least for a chunk of the audience, didn't quite unify all those elements smoothly.
It really makes you think about how hard it is to blend genres like that and satisfy everyone.
It really does.
Okay, so beyond the core film experience and the reviews, what else does IMDb tell us? Like, how did it actually do financially, given the mixed user stuff?
Well, this is another interesting wrinkle. Financially, it looks like a success.
Really?
Yeah. The estimated budget is listed at $90 million.
Okay, pretty standard for this kind of potential blockbuster.
Right. But the U.S. and Canada gross over $277 million.
Wow.
And worldwide, it pulled in over $364 million.
Okay, so nearly 4 times its budget back worldwide. That's definitely a commercial hit.
Absolutely. Which just goes to show, doesn't it? Mixed user reviews don't always kill a film's box office performance. Name recognition, director, stars, marketing, it all plays a part.
Yeah, that disconnect is always fascinating. Anything else memorable from the IMDb page? Trivia, quotes.
There's actually a really poignant quote listed from an older version of the character Sammy.
Oh, yeah.
It says, maybe once a week I wake up paralyzed reliving that night, but before the sun went down, I think that was the best day of my life. Was it like that for you?
Wow.
And the character Stack replies, no doubt about it. Last time I see my brother, last time I seen the sun. And just for a few hours, we was free.
That's powerful stuff. That hints at some real emotional depth in there, despite what some reviewers felt overall.
It really does. Suggests those dramatic elements, maybe especially in the first half, really hit hard.
Little Any fun trivia bits?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, for people who stick around, there's apparently a short scene at the very end of the credits. Little crazy credits bonus.
Ah, good to know. Always worth waiting.
And there's also a listed goof, like a continuity error.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
Apparently, during the big climax action scene in a place called the Juke, some extra humans suddenly appear who weren't accounted for in an earlier scene involving a garlic test.
Huh. A garlic test. Okay, so the vampire stuff is definitely front and center there. But yeah, extra people popping up. Oops.
Yeah, just a little filmmaking quirk that someone spotted. Happens all the time, right?
True. All right, so let's try and wrap this up then. We've done a pretty deep dive into Sinners 2025 based on its IMDb profile.
We sure have.
And it paints a picture of a film that's, really ambitious, trying to blend period drama, supernatural horror, action, a whole lot.
Definitely ambitious. And technically, very accomplished by most accounts.
Yeah.
Cinematography, music, acting, all got high marks.
Yeah, but then there's that big split, right?
Yeah.
Critics seem to love it. That 84 Metascore is huge, but audiences, more divided. That 7.8 user score hides that tale of two halves feeling.
Exactly. Especially that second half with the handling of the horror, the vampires. That seems to be the real make or break point for many viewers.
So it leaves us with a really interesting question, doesn't it? When a filmmaker like Ryan Coogler tries to give you that original full meal by mixing all these genres, what is it for you as someone watching that becomes the most crucial thing for it to actually work, for it to really, stick the landing?
That's a great question to ponder. Is it the tonal consistency, the emotional through line, how well the genres actually mesh rather than just sit side by side? It really makes you think about what holds a complex story like that together for an audience.